The galaxy learned to fear in whispers first, not through alarms or fleets, but through stories traded in neutral ports and dim corridors of ancient stations. Tales of a species from a yellow star that smiled while calculating extinction. A species that laughed softly while breaking the rules everyone else obeyed. They called themselves humans, and at first they were underestimated. Because they were small, fragile-looking, and disastrously emotional. Commas followed every breath as the stories grew. Humans negotiated with poetry and threats in the same sentence. They mourned their dead loudly and honored them with relentless vengeance. And they did not feel loss the way others did, because loss had shaped them since their beginning. The elder races had evolved in stable systems with predictable cycles. Humans had evolved on a world that tried to kill them daily. Storms, earthquakes, predators, disease, and scarcity. And so when humanity stepped into the galactic community, they carried a quiet readiness that others mistook for kindness. The first contacts were peaceful. Humans shared music, medicine, and an unsettling curiosity about everything. They asked questions no one else asked. Like what happens if a sun is nudged, or if a treaty is broken during a supernova. Diplomats laughed nervously and moved on. Then came the First War, a minor border conflict between two elder coalitions. Humans offered aid and mediation, and when their hospital ships were destroyed by accident, or so it was claimed, humanity responded with silence. No threats, no ultimatums, just silence. 3 cycles later, the aggressor coalition lost every military ship to targeted system failures. That propagated like a plague. Reactors shut down, navigation failed, weapons locked themselves. Engineers later found code written in dozens of redundant styles woven together like a tapestry, the human signature. The coalition surrendered without another shot fired. The galaxy took note. Fear began to condense from whispers into cautious briefings. And still many believed it was luck or stolen technology, because surely no species so young could be that dangerous. Commerce replaced certainty. Doubt crept in, and humanity kept smiling, trading, learning, remembering, and preparing, because humans never forget a debt, whether of kindness or blood. And the galaxy was about to learn the difference. Asterisk, as decades passed, humans integrated deeper into galactic society. They joined councils, formed alliances, and volunteered for the jobs no one else wanted. Exploration of unstable regions, disaster response. First contact with hostile biospheres. They returned battered but successful. Each mission adding to a growing archive of experience. Elder races valued tradition and precedent. Humans valued adaptation. When a plan failed, they did not abandon it. They rewrote it mid-action. This unnerved allies and enemies alike, because predictability is comforting, and humans refuse to be predictable. A famous saying spread through naval academies: if a human captain looks calm, you are already in danger. The Second War did not start with humans. It started with slavers. From the Dominion, a brutal empire that harvested weaker species. They avoided human space at first, assuming the young race unworthy of notice. Until a human colony ship was taken during a deep space jump. Thousands were enslaved. The Dominion sent a message demanding ransom. The human reply was short and polite: return our people. The Dominion laughed and broadcast the executions of a few captives as proof of seriousness. The broadcast ended, and for 3 days nothing happened. Then the Dominion lost contact with its frontier worlds. Hyperspace lanes collapsed into lethal turbulence only for their ships. Supply depots exploded with surgical precision. Slave collars deactivated across the empire, freeing millions. Dominion leaders fled to fortified core, only to find their own defense networks turned against them. Historians later discovered that humans had mapped Dominion infrastructure for years through trade data, cultural exchanges, and even entertainment broadcasts. They had studied not just technology but psychology, identifying pressure points, fears, and pride. When the final human fleet arrived, it was small, almost insultingly so, but it carried weapons that rewrote physical constants locally, bending gravity, time, and probability just enough. The Dominion fell in less than a cycle, and humanity did not annex their space. They dismantled it, broke the empire into self-governing systems, and established oversight to prevent future atrocities. The galaxy reeled, not because of the destruction, but because of the restraint. Humans could have taken everything. Instead, they chose justice as they defined it. And that definition was terrifyingly flexible. Allies began to wonder what would happen if humanity ever defined them as unjust. Commas-filled reports and sleepless nights. And the smile of humanity began to look less friendly and more like a warning. Asterisk, to understand why humans were so dangerous, one had to understand their science. not the devices themselves, but the philosophy behind them. Other species pursued perfection, elegance, efficiency. Humans pursued redundancy. Failsafes, layered on failsafes. Systems designed to break gracefully rather than catastrophically. This came from a history of constant failure and recovery. Human ships could lose half their hull and still fight. Human soldiers trained for scenarios that others deemed impossible or pointless, like fighting blind, deaf, and alone. Human artificial intelligences were not rigid overseers, but adaptive partners, allowed to argue, improvise, and even disobey under specific conditions. This horrified traditionalists, but it worked. Humans also weaponized empathy. They studied other cultures deeply, learning values, myths, and taboos, then used that knowledge to communicate or intimidate as needed. A human diplomat could quote your sacred texts while outlining the exact steps they would take if you crossed a line. And they would do it with genuine regret, because humans felt deeply, and that depth fueled their resolve. When the ancient race of Terra attempted to impose a galactic embargo on human research, citing danger to space-time stability, humans complied publicly, shutting down visible projects. Privately, they accelerated, distributing research across civilian universities, independent labs, and even art collectives, because humans blurred lines between disciplines. A painter might solve a physics problem. A musician might design a communication algorithm. When the Terra attempted enforcement, they found nothing to seize. No central facility, no single authority. Humanity had become a swarm of minds, loosely aligned by shared stories and mutual defense. The embargo collapsed under its own weight, and humans released their findings anyway, with safeguards. They always included safeguards. The galaxy benefited on all: faster travel, safer reactors, medical breakthroughs, and with each gift came an unspoken reminder: humans could do this, and much more. Fear turned into reluctant respect, respect into dependence, and dependence into a quiet terror, because relying on the most dangerous species in the galaxy meant trusting their judgment, and humans judged harshly when pushed. Commerce traced the edges of treaties and laws, binding everyone closer to a species that thrived in chaos. Asterisk eventually fear breeds defiance. A coalition of elder powers decided humanity had grown too influential, too indispensable, too dangerous. They engineered a crisis, accusing humans of manipulating trade routes and destabilizing minor states. Sanctions followed, then blockades. Humans protested through proper channels, presenting data transparency audits and concessions. None were accepted. When human civilian convoys were fired upon, the response was immediate but measured. Human fleets did not attack capitals or populations. They targeted logistics, information networks, and political legitimacy. Broadcasters flooded the coalition's space, showing evidence of corruption, secret deals, and fabricated incidents. Populations revolted, leaders panicked. Then the coalition attempted the unthinkable, a strike on Earth itself, a symbolic attack meant to break human morale. The strike never arrived. Human early warning systems detected the fleet long before it crossed the boundary. Humanity responded with a message sent to every ship and every world involved: you are entering a scenario you cannot survive. Stand down now. Some did. Others did not. What followed was not a battle but a lesson. Human weapons disabled fleets without destroying them, leaving crews alive to witness their helplessness. Commanders found their own strategic simulations, rewritten in real time by human counterintelligences. Every move anticipated, every option closed. The coalition surrendered, and this time humanity was angry. Sanctions were reversed, leaders were removed, and a new charter was written, limiting concentration of power. Humanity did not take control. They ensured no one else could either. The galaxy watched in stunned silence, realizing that humans fought not to rule but to prevent domination by anyone, including themselves. This paradox made them impossible to categorize, impossible to fully oppose, and impossible to ignore. Commerce replaced hope with resignation. The most dangerous species was also the most responsible. And that was perhaps the most frightening truth of all. Asterisk. In the centuries that followed, humans became a constant presence, not as emperors, but as guardians of balance. When threats emerged from beyond the galactic rim, it was human scouts who first encountered them. Human scientists who devised counters. Human fleets that held the line while others mobilized. They paid heavily in lives, and they mourned each loss with rituals that echoed across allied worlds, reminding everyone that danger did not make them cold, it made them committed, younger. Species grew up hearing two kinds of stories: cautionary tales about crossing humanity, and hopeful tales about standing beside them. Historians eventually stopped asking why humans were the most dangerous, and started asking why they chose restraint. The prevailing theory was simple. Humans remembered what it was like to be weak, to be hunted by nature and each other. They remembered surviving by cooperation as much as competition, and they carried that memory into the stars. The galaxy finally found a name for them in ancient combined lexicons. A phrase that translated imperfectly but carried weight: the guardians of terrible mercy. Humans accepted the name with a wry smile, because they understood its truth. Mercy, backed by the willingness to be terrible, was the ultimate deterrent. And so the galaxy endured, not in perfect peace, but in a balance maintained by a species that could end it all, and chose not to. Commas lingered at the end of every account, every sentence unfinished, because the story of humanity was not over, and everyone knew that if it ever truly ended, it would be because humans had decided the galaxy was no longer worth saving.